you have to understand, you're not a static thing. You're an exploratory process. And one of the problems is that we've been taught that we perceive the world as a collection of objects. And it's wrong. It's technically, neurobiologically wrong. You don't see things, you see functional utility. Your brain is a mapping tool. You have the locus coeruleus down in the brainstem, right? Ancient. And it's flooding your system with norepinephrine because it's trying to tell you what matters. You don't see the floor. You see a place to walk. If the floor suddenly vanished, then you'd see it. You'd see it as a catastrophic whole. But until it breaks, it's just a transparent utility. Now, if your aim is low, if you're just trying to skulk through life without being bitten, your brain filters out everything that isn't safety. And that's a disaster. It's a physiological disaster because your neurochemistry shifts from exploratory heroism, the thing that makes you thrive, to defensive anxiety. You're in a crouch, man. You're literally physically constricted. And that's when the parasites get you. That's the danger of especially modern times. Well, if you aren't building your own map, you'll download one. You'll grab some rigid, totalizing ideology because it's convenient. It gives you a lexicon, a set of simplified, buzzword-heavy linguistic tools. And that allows you to feel like you've solved the mystery of the universe without ever having to leave your room. You know, it's a shortcut. It quicks the hippocampus, the part of your brain that compares reality to expectation by lying to it. It tells you there is no unknown. We've identified the villains. We've identified the victims. And now you don't have to think. It's a psychoanalytical catastrophe because you're trading your soul for a script. You're becoming a puppet for a dead idea. I'm not saying this from a position of superiority. I lived this right here in 1994. I was an assistant professor in this very institution. I was a nobody. I had a tiny office and a salary that was, well, frankly, it was pathetic. Like, it was even more difficult having 2 kids to feed. By any rational left hemisphere metric, I should have been doing the bare minimum. I should have been playing the game. I could have adopted the fashionable lexicon of the day, and I could have played the academic politics. It would have been safe. But I was possessed by this need to conduct a deep psychoanalytical investigation into why we do evil. Like, I was staying up until 4 in the morning rewriting maps of meaning for the 20th time and trying to figure out how the right hemisphere signals the amygdala through mythology. I was overteaching. I was giving these 3-hour lectures that weren't on the syllabus. And the administration, they thought I was out of my mind. And in some sense, I was. But I was discovering that when you align your speech with the logos, when you refuse to say things that make you weak, your brain rewards you with a sense of meaning that makes the lack of money irrelevant. I was broke, I was exhausted, but I was awake. You have to choose. You can be a well-paid sleepwalker, or you can be a broke hero. And I remember the last day of class, students were in tears. Why? Not because of me, because we were looking at the dragon together. We were realizing that if you don't do the psychoanalytical work to integrate your own shadow, you'll be swallowed by the collective. So, clean your room, for heaven's sake. Tell the truth. Don't work down to your paycheck. Work up to your soul. Because the world is a heavy place, and you need to be strong enough to carry it. And that's where we have to talk about Karl Marx. Now, look, Marx was no fool. He saw the genuine suffering of the working class. He saw the exploitation. But he committed a psychoanalytical error of such magnitude that it nearly destroyed the 20th century. He took the dragon of chaos, the internal struggle between good and evil that exists in every human heart, and he projected it onto the social world. He turned it into oppressor versus oppressed. And that is a catastrophe for the nervous system. Why? Because the moment you adopt that lexicon, the moment you decide that the evil is out there in the bourgeoisie or the patriarchy or the Harvard administration, you stop looking at the evil in here. You see, your amygdala is perfectly happy to find a scapegoat. It's much easier to feel righteous indignation than it is to do the hard work of cleaning your own soul. when I was here in the 90s. I saw it a lot. And this ideology has been gaining ground since the 60s. And as I mentioned, it was a burgeoning trend in the 90s. But now it's just blown completely out of proportion. And we should be precise about what it is, especially in a place like this. We're talking about neo-Marxism. The classical Marxists saw the struggle as economic. Who owned the factory? But when that failed, the neo-Marxists simply shifted the battlefield. They took that same oppressor versus oppressed framework and mapped it onto culture and identity, turning every human interaction into a zero-sum power struggle. What was a trend in the 90s is now a totalizing social force. Now, I want to be very clear, and I know how things are characterized in the media, but I'm not a politician. I have no desire to be one. I'm a scientist. I'm not trying to be political in the partisan sense. What I am trying to do, as carefully as I can, is point out that there are real, measurable neurological side effects to approaching life this way. And, you know, it's a difficult thing to discuss in the modern academy. But I have to say, what better way to approach these ideas than with an audience like this? You people are at Harvard for a reason. You're here because you're willing to listen, to actually contend with the world's complexity. It's a rare thing to find a group this dedicated to the truth. And it's a privilege to be back here. Wow, thanks.